The World Economic Forum, speaking to NDTV, Martin Wolf, Financial Times chief economic commentator, said that Prime Minister Modi's speech was sensible and he defended globalization at a time when Donald Trump will do just the opposite. But as far as India replacing China was concerned, he thought India was decades behind.
Well, my impression is that the speech was a sensible speech in the sense it was well targeted to this audience. He said the sort of things they want to hear, both about India and also about defending globalization and remaining sort of determined to remain integrated in the world economy. Yeah. From an Indian Prime Minister, given the history of India in the last 30, 40 years ago, that's very remarkable, particularly when Mr. Trump is going to come here and say the opposite thing. So I think that's a clear and important statement. Mm-hmm. I think the business people of the world are looking at India very, very seriously. They are aware it's a very important and big and fast-growing country, and they'd like to invest in it. And they would like to believe in Mr. Modi too. I don't think this speech will be enough to shift things dramatically. People know a lot about India after all, but it will remind them that essentially Mr. Modi remains a man apparently determined to open up India to foreign business and to be friendly to it. And they'd like to hear that. Of course they do.
All right, I was at a session with Fareed Zakaria and some Indian ministers, and he asked a question to one of the ministers, the Commerce Minister, that what are you talking about positioning yourself at Davos that you can take the place of China in a sense when China's, 4 times your GDP, etc., etc. What are you even talking about? Did you get the same feeling?
I don't think anyone outside India, and I suspect not many people inside India, really view India now as a credible rival or replacement for China. It's obviously decades behind. That's the reality.
So the big narrative is emerging that, we are in a position to take India's, at least in India.
Well, India is now growing at least as fast, if not faster than China. That's good, but from a much smaller base. I think one should not overdo this rivalry with China thing. It's potentially dangerous and destabilizing.
Well, India decades behind China is not something that the government here would like to hear. But Martin Wolf also spoke about President Trump and said that he doesn't particularly care about climate change and he will be his usual provocative self when he speaks at the special session.
The first question that I have is with Donald Trump. It's got to do with him. You have the Prime Minister of India saying, we should all come together for climate change. You have Emmanuel Macron yesterday saying similar things. But who's really going to pay for, all that's related to the bill of climate change? With the US saying they won't. And Europe is going to be, they're going to be ready for whatever Donald Trump is going to say. And they're going to hit back hard. But he's not going to care, is he?
No, I'm sure he doesn't care very much. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting question why he's come, and we're going to find out. But I imagine he's going to be his usual self. He's going to be provocative. The people in the hall are not his voters. They're certainly not his base. So if he turns out when it appears on the American TV to be rather truculent and aggressive, I think the base will cheer. I feel he went to Davos to tell these rich people what they should do with themselves. And clearly on the climate change issue, he's made his position clear. I disagree with it very strongly. And he's not going to pay anything for it. So I'm afraid the rest of the world is on its own.